Welcome to Failed Forward, a podcast for professionals who are wondering, how the hell did I get here?
Join your host, Rachel Durkan, and me, Donna Miller, as we discuss the messy, bumpy, and often unattractive journey to success.
After all, if it isn't hard to do, is it really worth doing? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Failed Forward, the podcast for those of us wondering, how the hell did I get here? My name is Rachel Durkan. I'm with Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web marketing, branding, and sales enablement agency that specializes in working with clients with a complex sale. So our clients, if you have a sales team that is required to close the deal, we can increase the number of meetings that sales team is having and increase the quality of closes that they are getting. And I am joined by my lovely and talented co-host, Donna Miller. Donna, introduce yourself to our lovely.
Oh, well, thank you, Rachel. So I am Donna Miller. I am founder of C3 Workplace and Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting, where for the last 30 years, I've had the great good fortune, and I really do mean that most of the time, great good fortune, of helping companies to accelerate their growth. And we do that by providing consulting and implementation services around systems that support your finances, your biz dev, and your operations. So clients come to us because they know that we're going to build efficient, integrated systems that they can execute on, or we can execute on. So it's a way to really help companies on their journey towards building organizations that run and grow without them, which is something I've done and I'm a tiny bit passionate about. So,
and you've made a lot of progress, which is a great segue to our conversation today, because we're going to talk about imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome to me is, and I think everybody I've ever met has suffered from imposter syndrome. My kids at 9 and 6 years old don't even know it, but they suffer from imposter syndrome when they try something new, right? And imposter syndrome is this feeling that you're not good enough. You don't deserve to sit at the table you're sitting at. You don't deserve the money you're making. You don't deserve the authority you have. You don't deserve the responsibility, or you're not capable of handling the responsibility you have. It's that head trash bullshit that makes you feel teeny tiny. And if you have never had that feeling, I would like to talk to you, because either you're full of bullshit or you're a superhero.
Yeah, I want what you're drinking. Yeah,
exactly. So, Donna, you were just telling me a story about imposter syndrome and what you felt in your long career. And before we get into it, congratulations, Donna just won the Women of Achievement Award through the Morris County Chamber of Commerce, which you're going to mention today. So, and that's a community, a rather large county, where of all the successful women in the county, Donna was recognized, and for her growth, for her support of others, for her success. And that is a huge deal. Not, it's only one person a year who gets this award. I think there's only 5 women total who have ever had it. So if nothing else, in all of this imposter syndrome you've had over your life, look at where you are now. But you probably didn't always feel that you're successful, and you may even feel a little bit of imposter syndrome today over something. So talk to me about your story of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, it's funny. It's an ebbs and flows kind of thing. And for me, the overall source, or so I thought, of my imposter syndrome was the fact that I have built this organization from nothing. I made it all up. I wrote the business plan. I created something from nothing. And I've done all of that on my high school degree that was followed up with an MBA in self-taught entrepreneurship. And I think that's kind of the nature for me of entrepreneurship, is you are always living in the unknown. You are
never know what you're doing.
Having to step outside your comfort zone because it's new. Every day there's something new. So I think that entrepreneurship and imposter syndrome really go hand in hand. And I don't know anyone who doesn't, as you said, Rachel, suffer with some form of imposter syndrome. And believe me, in my 30 years, I did it very wrong until I started to figure out how to get it right. But the story that you're talking about, and it was a turning moment for me. And there have been a few in my career. But I was asked to go onto the board of the Morris County Chamber of Commerce, which, was a pretty big deal. And at the time, I'm pretty sure I might have been the only small business on the board. It tended to be a lot more corporate, which always made me feel insecure because I was never a corporate girl.
Hey, you were never in it, so you didn't know what the world was. And then
and I felt inferior I very much felt inferior to that corporate world because of their level of education formal education versus my street smarts. So, so I'm sitting around a table with the president of the chamber and another gentleman who is the president of County College of Morris, and he's coming onto the board. And, you know, the three of us are sitting around a table and they're talking about their homes and their second homes and the taxes here and the taxes there. And I'm sitting there literally, Rachel, with my 19-cent C3 big click
Is it still
pen.
19 cents right
And
now?
that, no, I love these pens. I love these pens. And I'm sitting there with my little pen and I'm getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And I thought to myself, I had to literally, like, I don't know if any of you have ever found yourself in that moment where if everyone could see inside of you, I was shrinking into a nothing. And I had to literally say to myself, Donna, snap the hell out of it. You earned your seat at this table. You would not be here unless you valued, you know, and I've known at that point, I had gotten to the point where I had been in enough rooms with very successful people that I realized I was way smarter than.
You could hold your own in those rooms.
Right, exactly. So it took a minute and I had to take a deep breath and I had to say, Donna, you earned your seat at this table. You have a lot to offer this organization. Own this. And so I did, but it was funny. I came back to my office and during a staff meeting, I told my team this story because one thing that I think is really important, and I think that's kind of why we do this podcast, we want people to know it's not a straight line and it's not always easy. And it is full of moments of insecurity and imposter syndrome. So I told my team, I said to them that I was sitting around this table and, you know, I was shrinking. And then I remembered, you know, who I am and, you know, I'm a child of God and all this stuff. And I got it. And I said to them, the moral of the story is I certainly earned my seat at this table, but I need a better pen.
But do you, if you really like it?
And so the funny part is my next birthday, my team got me a better pen.
Probably a very expensive pen.
You know, this concept of imposter syndrome. And, you know, Rachel, when you and I first started this, you said to me, you know, kind of what was your biggest obstacle? And honestly, my biggest obstacle has always been me. Because I have proved to myself again and again over the years that I'll figure it out and I will rise above it. It won't be a straight line. It'll be, you know, some bobbing and weaving. But, you know, I think that's just part of the journey. And I think we do have to embrace the fact that, you know, a lot of times we're comparing, you know, our beginning to someone else's middle or, you know, fourth quarter. So I know you've had to have had moments of imposter syndrome. So
I mean,
where's this showed up for you? Because you and I are both, like, people see us and they think, oh, they've got their shit together. And, you know, we move at a very fast pace and we do get shit done. But, you know, it comes at a cost.
And you know, I love the ebbs and flows because sometimes there'll be months where I am on top of the world. I am crushing it. I am so confident I can kill it. And then there's months where I'm like, what the F word am I doing? I can't do this. I'm never going to grow the way I want. I'm not going to achieve the next milestone. This is where I end. Like, and it comes and goes. And I think that as we get more educated about head trash or imposter syndrome, we have to recognize that that's what's happening. And I would say to myself, get up, stop wallowing and get up and figure it out. And I try to, like, sometimes I need to, like, you know, proverbially, whatever the word is, slap myself a little bit and just be like, snap out of it. But to your point, I started my company at 25 years old. Nobody takes you seriously at 25 years old. So here I am going out and trying to sell at the time we only did website development to these small businesses and have them convinced that this 25-year-old knew what she was doing. And I had no fucking clue what I was doing. I built my first website. I learned how to code, and I found this person on Craigslist and they hired me for $500 to build a 50-page website. I built, this is so long ago, I built it in like Dreamweaver. Not that the Dreamweaver is like a dead.
Oh, I do remember that. Wait, can you just pause? $500 for 50 pages.
I know, now I charge like $50,000 for 50 pages. Okay. But to be fair, I mean, I took a risk on them, but they took a risk on me. I didn't even know how to get the FTP server set up right. Like, I didn't know anything. I had to Google how to do things. And this is like way back before there was YouTube to like show you videos. Like, We didn't have the same
I
technology.
know.
That's
I know.
now. So I was literally like in my book, in like my Dreamweaver book, like trying to look up how to do this stuff. But I did it. And I had no idea the entire time what I was doing, but I did it anyway. And I remember the first 5 or 10 years of my career, probably, I would say 5 years to be fair. It was just a constant repeat of having no idea what I was doing, faking it, but I never failed. I was like, I don't care if come hell or high water, I would pull all-nighters to learn how to do these things. And I figured it out. And I remember, so now my first job, $500. I remember fast forward a couple of years and I got a job for a $20,000 website. That blew my mind. Like that was, first of all, again, it would have been worth way more. It's worth way more. But the fact that I got $4,000 or $5,000 checks, I remember I framed them, and I don't know where they are now, but for like 5 or 10 years, I had them in a frame because it was like the first big money I ever made.
Yeah.
And I remember getting it and thinking, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I can't believe that this is what people are paying me. I mean, now I just closed $1 million contract. Like and it's like, we're worth our value. And that's another podcast we should probably talk about, is like charging what you're worth, Donna. We
Oh
got
yeah.
down
Oh
because
yeah.
actually I'm talking to some friends now who just started a business, and that is over their head. So we've got to make that our next conversation. But you don't charge what you're worth because you don't feel like you're worth it, but your time is. And that imposter syndrome has come with me my entire life. I remember when I had my first child in the hospital and they're like, okay, it's time to go home. I'm like, you want me to take this home by myself? Like that's
Right.
imposter. I mean, you have imposter syndrome outside of business. It's for personal life. It's for everything. And it's head trash. And you've got to slap yourself and say, get up, because this is just a blip telling you that you're not good enough, and you are good enough. And the thing I'll say about imposter syndrome, and I see employees that work in our company, and I see colleagues, some people will let it get the better of them. Some people will quit. And I'm not saying you should never quit. I mean, quitting the right time is always is an action, and it's a good thing sometimes, but quitting because you feel like you can't do it is never the right solution. I always say, if you really want to quit a job, accomplish what you need to accomplish first and then quit on top.
Right. Right. Right.
And
Right.
see how you feel. But I think that imposter syndrome and the ability to overcome it is what makes or breaks successful people more than anything else.
I totally agree. And I talk about this a lot. I have a keynote that I do on the power of influence, and influence, is rooted in confidence, and confidence is rooted in competence.
Mm-hmm.
So the longer you do something, the more confident you get, the more influence you have. And, of course, the opposite of that is debilitating. And, we will talk more about charging what you're worth at another time. But, that one breaks my heart when people think they have to compete on price, because we both know that when you're competing on price, you're more than likely cultivating high touch, low profit clients, which is just a hamster
And they
wheel
don't
that's
stay.
impossible to get off of.
I just did an audit. It's so funny. Like last night I was finishing up our town hall for like numbers, and I did an audit of clients that left us or that we fired this year. And it's always when I bend a little bit. All right, well, I'll make this work, and it's always the ones that don't stay around. And then I have other clients that have been with us for 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years. And it's when you're charging what you're worth and you're putting your foot down, those are the ones that stay with you. It's when you bend your value a little bit, they always end up leaving because nobody's meeting in the middle on values. And, I know you living your values. If you can't align values between your client and you, with your employees and you, it's never going to work. And that's part of the imposter syndrome concept of being of saying, oh, I'll make this work, but it's a little bit outside my values. So like you have to align with what you're capable of and what you believe in, and not bend.
I couldn't agree more. And, we talked about this before we went on air, but I think for me, the big byproduct of, and I still, have imposter syndrome on a regular basis, but I'm just at I say that I'm in the fourth quarter of my career, and, I've got a pretty good platform and I've got a pretty good reputation. And so that doesn't crop up nearly as often. And frankly, I'm a lot more selective in what I do. And I think, that's almost what it comes down to, is my self-worth is no longer tied to my output. And I think for many, many years, I confused, output with effectiveness or
Yes.
output with value. And that's when you get into the work harder, not smarter mode. So I think that's the trick, is how do you flip it all around when you become, if you think of people like Warren Buffett, I mean, he does nothing but think strategically and tell other people what to do.
Yeah. So it's funny you say this, because I struggle with this today, like every day. I have two little kids. I have a successful business. Now, the business has given me the opportunity to work. If I want to work 30 hours, I can work 30 hours. If I want to work 50 hours, I can work 50 hours. If I work 50, I'll probably make more money. But here I am surrounded by people who are growing their business at faster than mine, though we are purposely growing slower this year because I just can't mentally handle it. That
Which is a
are
great strategy.
that are selling their businesses, that have the, like, my brother has a great business, and he doesn't have kids. He's in the full sprint to grow and sell, and that's great. But I feel like if I'm in a full sprint and working 80 hours a week, I'm going to miss all the time with my kids. I want to get them off the bus. So, you don't know. And I mean, I guess that's great if you don't, where you are in your life, but I think you have to say it's not about output. And I have to keep reminding myself, because I find myself feeling bad about it. Oh, I could be making more. I could be growing faster. I could be, and yeah, I could be, but do I want to? And my brain is constantly at a battle with itself. Even though I know I don't want to, I feel like I should. And I'm still struggling with that.
Well, I totally get that. And I think that is a fundamental problem for all of us. How much is enough? We live in we happen to be in an area of the country, in the New York metro area, where I think we are highly driven, and, we have certainly have surrounded ourselves with similar people who are doing what we're doing. But for me, and I really applaud you for making parenting a priority, because to me, that's why I started the business. My kids were 7 and 10. I wanted to make 6 figures. I wanted to be a mom. And that was 30 years ago, and I didn't see it happening where I was. So I set out to create it. And, did everything go exactly how I wanted it to? Hell no. But I had the flexibility, and I could show up for my kids, and I could show up for myself. And I think that's a good way to kind of wrap it up. I think the truth is, when you show up for yourself, you are fending off that imposter syndrome. And the more you do that, the better, it's an upward, you either have almost a downward cycle going or an upward cycle. And I think that honoring yourself, your values, your boundaries, your goals, I think that goes a long way towards
it's not as easy for everyone. You're really good at it, Donna, at like saying, this is what I want. Everything else can suck it. You're really good at setting those boundaries. I know other people, myself included, I'll say, this is what I want. And then like 3 days later, I'll be like, oh yeah, Rachel, this is what you wanted. Like I have to remind myself constantly, because it trickles away. So I know we got to wrap up, but just talk for 1 second. Like, how do you do that? How do you say, this is what I want, and then everything else be damned? And like, it doesn't seem to ever leave your mind.
Well, it's not a straight and perfect line for me either. Trust me, I get asked to do a lot of things because I've built a platform. And I'm getting asked by really nice people to do really good things, but I have to be true to myself. I joined a board last year, and it wasn't the right board for me. It just didn't feel right. So I had to resign. So how do I do it? Not perfectly, but always coming back to, where am I at in my life now? I just finished I do it every year, my assessment and goal setting. What do I want this year to be about? And as you know, I'm in the process. I've recently taken on a partner, and I'm selling the company. So how do you stay focused? I think for me, truthfully, doing it wrong for so long, getting the shit beat out of me
50 years of just doing a shit job is what
helped me to learn how to say no. And I think everybody has to come to that place in their own way. For me, a Sentinel book, and we've talked about this before, is The One Thing. And in The One Thing, it's a great and simple strategic plan, but it basically says it's either a hell yes or a no.
I was going to say that.
Really trying to stay focused on that again.
Yep. And that's how, because it'll be easy to join that board and say, well, I committed. Because like, I don't know about you, but like my son's in wrestling and doesn't want to do it. I'm like, you got to finish the season, right? We're so trained to committing, which is a good trait. But I think you also have to say, is this hell yes, or is it no?
Right.
And being okay with that.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
That's my mantra. And I told my team about that and they love that too, is that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we come to the end of another episode of Failed Forward. How the hell did I get here? So Rachel, what's your final advice for our audience on living with imposter syndrome? I'm not sure we ever really get over
When
it.
you
How do
get
we live with it better? How do we
you get
coexist?
those doubts, slap yourself, not really, like in your head, and say, get up, get over it, and figure it out because you can. And that's, you've got to just keep doing it.
Awesome.
And also, I'll say, if you're stuck, if you're truly stuck, get help, get a coach, admit you're stuck, and find help.
Yeah, yeah, and I have to say that for me, my evolution did not happen in isolation. It was with lots of groups and lots of coaches and lots of consultants and masterminds and hanging around with smart people like Rachel who helped me figure it out. It's nothing like having somebody who knows you tell you exactly what you need to hear.
Get up.
That's my advice to you, is get yourself in a room with people who tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So close us out for this episode, Rachel.
All right. I thought you usually did the closeout, but
I don't know. Do I close? Do you close?
All right. All right. What do you usually say? For those of you who are listening, thank you for listening and do your best to fail. If you're going to fail, which you inevitably will, make sure you fail forward, get up, and get over that imposter syndrome. And make sure
Okay,
you join us on the
absolutely.
next episode. We are now in 2025, switching to every 2 weeks. So make sure that you check us out in 2 weeks on Wednesday when the next episode drops.
Awesome. Until next time, take care, everyone.